Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here. And for those of you that sort of know or don't know me, you probably won't be surprised I'm going to talk about trees. It seems to be my thing. And what I thought I would sort of talk about this afternoon is to encapsulate some of the things that I think are important about trees in relation to our governance, politics, and of course the current election. Why not? It's happening. And I wanted to remind people of certain basic truths that we seem to have forgotten. So the first one is that our planet is the planet we know because of plants. Now you know that, I hope. You're all thinking, oh yes, that's obvious. But then you think about all the other people that surround you in your daily life who haven't got a bloody clue. They think that they control this planet and that they are the masters of the planet. And you don't have to look very far to find that sort of attitude. But think about it. Plants changed the atmosphere. They changed the oceans. They made life as we know it possible. And without them, that life, these life forms would not be around. Without plants, we would not be around. And yet we seem to have lost a connection and an affiliation with how important plants are. Takeaway story, plants changed everything. Plants do change everything. And they will change everything in the future. They always have, and they always will. Now, given that plants are so important, you're probably thinking, well, how do they connect to us? What do they do for human beings? And one of my answers would be, they make you human. Without plants, and trees in particular, because they're so large, so obvious, around us all the time, you would not be the human being that you are. What do I mean by that? You'd not be as healthy. You would be unwell mentally. You would live less. You'd have a shorter lifespan. Now, these are not incidental, unimportant things. These are fundamental to your existence. So I want you to think about the detail of this. A large study was done on women's health in the United States. And what did they find? They found that where women lived in treed green spaces, they lived longer. Well, we know that. They have babies with higher birth weights. They use fewer prescription drugs. If they have to go to hospital, they have a shorter stay. There's less domestic violence. Now, we know this is correlation, not cause, but think about the money associated with all the things that I've just described. How much money does our government spend on the medical issues associated with those benefits that I've just described? You're not talking about tens of millions. You're not even talking about hundreds of millions. You're talking about billions of dollars each year. Now, in relation to trees, we know how important they are. So, what are some of the guidelines? Well, I want you to take a message away from this talk. When I finished in a few minutes' time, you'll know that I've been here talking about trees. You walk out that door and you've forgotten who I am. You'll get home and someone will say, who did you hear? And you'll say, oh, some bloke talked about trees. So what's the take-home message? And I want you to tell me what this message is in a minute. I'm going to ask you a question and I want you to answer it. So, when we have a forest in Australia, when you drive to Bendigo, if the canopy of cover of the trees is greater than 30%, you've got a forest. A colleague of mine, Dr. Lyndall Plant, did a brilliant work on how much extra money you got for a property with trees when you sold it in Brisbane. And she found that the value of the same houses went up and up with more and more trees until, you guessed it, reached 30%, and then the value fell. What do we know from that? We know that people want trees around their homes, but not too many. So 30%. If you want to know how to get the best out of your urban trees, you want 30% canopy cover. The benefits go up, 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 and then at about 30% they start to taper off. and you've got to put a lot more effort in to get a lot more benefit. Okay, so about 30%. So if someone says to you from your local government, state government, your sceptical neighbour, how many trees, what sort of canopy cover do you want? The answer is? Thank you. I was a bit worried I wasn't going to get 30% back. Okay, and it is really an arboricultural magic number. Now, if we know all of this, and the people who rule, local government, state government, federal government, they do know all of this. You may think they don't, but they actually know it. They've been told. How can it be that we are losing canopy cover in every urban environment that exists? Cities, of course, and here we are in Bendigo and you think, city slicker talking about Melbourne again. No, I'm talking about your loss in Bendigo, or the loss in Ballarat, or the loss in Warrnambool, or the loss in Benalla, or the loss in Hamilton, or the loss in Euroa. We're losing trees in all of those environments. How can that be? How can trees be removed unnecessarily? Unnecessarily for what? Development, housing development, roadworks, infrastructure, sheer bloody-mindedness. I don't like the tree. I bought the property and I don't like the tree. It's a goner. So we're losing trees unnecessarily. Look at our roads. How many trees have disappeared along our roadways? I drive to Canberra regularly to see my daughter. And as I drive, I notice that I go up the Hume Freeway and there are fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer, and no trees. I get to certain places where you used to be able to see the farmland and the mountains in the distance because of the trees on the roadside, all gone. Why? It's much easier to mow a bit of turf than to look after the trees and curate them. These are unnecessary tree losses. We could and we should do better. Now some of you, but I suspect not in this room, some of you might have family members that go, oh yes, that's all very well. He's one of those tree huggers. Okay, he doesn't have the beard, but he should have. Okay, and he's a tree hugger. He would say that. But do you want to live out in the bush under a tree, or do you want to live in a home? I want to live in a home. So you'd almost think we've got a choice here. You can have housing or you can have trees. Don't fall for that. Complete and utter nonsense. You can have both. You can have your home, you can have your tree, you can have your cake and eat it. So why are we fed this line? Because of greed. Other parts of the world have much more intense urban development than we do and more green space. Our developers say, oh, it's impossible. If you do that, the world will end. But in fact, when we ask for more green space, the development model changes. They make the same profit, we get more green space, but we don't make them do it. So, where does this lead me to in this talk? This leads me to a point where I accuse. And who do I accuse? I accuse those who are responsible for unnecessarily removing trees. I accuse those who have planning and development frameworks and guidelines at local and state government level that do not recognise and understand the importance of trees. I accuse those who widen roads and build infrastructure without considering the value of the trees. I accuse those who would have our children and our grandchildren living in places where there isn't a tree to be seen, where they will be less healthy, have poorer quality lives and shorter lifespans than we do. Yes, I accuse. And what do I accuse them of? Negligence. Now, have you picked up the word? Negligence. I want to hear that word from you in a few minutes' time. Maybe even in a few seconds' time. So, let's have a look at our state. Let's have a look at our nation. Let's have a look at the first world. How many governments at any level in those places put a monetary value on the tree and understand that it is providing functions and services to us that have real dollar values that affect our state and local budgets. If governments are not doing that, they are surely negligent. Governments that are not considering climate change and the importance of trees in climate change are negligent. Governments who don't understand that we all want reliable power, but who have a power line clearing regulation that is clearly out of date, no longer fit for purpose, and are unnecessarily pruning trees. Surely they are negligent. And when we look at governments, whether at state, local or federal level, if they're not taking into account the importance of vegetation, the human and basic need we have for trees, surely they are negligent. And finally, if a government at whatever level does not do anything, even though they understand the importance of the vegetation and the impact of their rules, regulations, and lack of foresight, surely they are. Thank you.